what is something positive that we could say about the Tesla event yesterday? And it's that as much as we hated the event and the presentation and I was pissed about it, I find it remarkable that they think whatever this future vehicle is could potentially in the future have twice as many vehicles ever produced as the Model 3 and the Model Y. A 380 million vehicle production of the S and Y combined is roughly half of the 700 million unit production of whatever this vehicle is. We expect this vehicle probably to be essentially the Tesla Model 2. My guess is this would probably be for the Asian markets, whether that's potentially India, China, etc. Essentially the Asian markets, possibly even South America as another possibility, where essentially a smaller car is more acceptable. And keep in mind that in America, while we like big cars, there are less Americans than there are, obviously, people in South America or in Asia. I mean, substantially less. I mean, even just China has like 3 to 4 times the population we do out here. Now, of course, we have much more money per capita than people in India or China by a factor of 5 to 10x. But over time, that will change, and I think it's very interesting that the expectation is this Model 2 could potentially generate substantially more vehicles produced than the 3 or the Y. This was one of the hints that Tesla really gave us. If we want to put on sort of the bullish hat, the sort of the buy the dip hat, right? Really what they're suggesting is, hey, pay attention. That smaller vehicle is going to be a game changer. Now, when we look at what Barclays said as sort of an Investor Day preview, they suggested that in the future, the Model 2 would probably be their lowest margin vehicle at around 21%. And that, I believe, is what we're showing here. But they're showing that also next to, look at this, 300 million vehicles for this Sprinter and potentially Cybertruck over here, right? We expect this to be a passenger/cargo van, and then you've got the Cybertruck here. 300 million vehicles is essentially suggesting that this van and pickup, we'll call it maybe the cargo lineup, okay? The cargo lineup could be roughly as big as the 3 and the Y. Now that's fascinating, that the cargo lineup alone could be roughly as big as the 3 and Y. That's pretty bullish on these new vehicles over here. Notice this is not saying, Tesla is not coming to us and saying, hey, we're going to produce the Tesla Roadster. I mean, maybe that's the Roadster, but I don't believe, I mean, the shape looks roughly in line with Roadster, right? But I don't believe Tesla would expect the Roadster to sell 700 million vehicles. Because after all, if the S and X are only selling 40 million vehicles, why would the Roadster sell 700, right? It wouldn't. It would be way too expensive. So really, they're suggesting here, let's just do the math over here. They're suggesting that essentially the current lineup would be responsible for about, oh, that's hilarious, 420 million vehicles at the current lineup, okay? So let's just write that down over here. So the current lineup would be responsible for about 420 million vehicles. The new lineup could be responsible for about 1.1 billion vehicles. So consider that for a moment. 1.1 billion divided by 420. That means the new vehicle lineup could represent 2.6x the current vehicle lineup. Now that's actually really interesting. So this combined over here represents 2.6x the current lineup, ignoring the semi-truck, right? So in other words, Tesla themselves thinks, hey, look, the cars we're making right now are not going to be the most popular vehicles. It's these future vehicles made on the new generation platforms that are going to be the most popular vehicles. Now, what's also interesting is that Elon Musk, and that really got me thinking, Elon Musk in the Q&A suggested, hey, we're not going to retool these cars to be manufactured by our Optimus robot or in the more advanced method of manufacturing. Instead, we're going to have our new gigafactories focus probably on these new vehicles and the new vehicle platform. We're not going to go back and retool all the old stuff because that would be very expensive to do. And Elon Musk actually rolled his eyes at the idea of the copy and paste model. Now, I'm the one who's been screaming copy and paste for a year, and I'll take egg on the face for apparently not aligning with the Elon vision there. Fine, like it's okay. I'm totally willing to be wrong, because see, in my opinion, when you make a sort of an argument, when you have an opinion, you can identify when that opinion is starting to be wrong, right? And that's actually this. Look at Elon's face here when he responds to the idea of the copy and paste model, okay? So my idea has been, hey, look, we've got the S's and X's. Let's master the S and X production. I'm sorry, not the S and X, the 3 and Y. Let's master the 3 and Y production at Giga Berlin and Austin, Texas, and then copy and paste those factories around the world. Tell us about South America, tell us about China, and tell us how we're gonna get to substantially more vehicles. But I think Elon has a different vision, and that vision is, no, each factory needs to be potentially an order of a magnitude more efficient than the prior factory, especially since our new vehicle platform is going to be focused on the new models. Just listen to this 7 seconds here.
The term you use, Lars, is copy-paste. So to get it right from the first time,
Look at Elon's face there, okay? Elon's face here is rolling his eye at the copy and paste idea and then shaking his head. I mean, the poor guy's falling asleep because he was probably up at like 2 a.m. the night before, and then I think he had to go to I'm not sure if he went to the NASA launch, but hey, I admire him. I think it's awesome. But anyway, again, look at the copy and paste and then Elon's reaction. It's as clear as day obvious what you need to know about copy and paste. Copy and paste is out the window. We're never saying it again, with the exception of it's dead, okay? Watch again.
The term you use, Lars, is copy-paste. So to get it right from the first time...
Elon not happy with copy and paste. And I think Elon's not happy with the copy and paste idea specifically because of this idea of this new vehicle platform. And I think that's what they see the future as. And that was probably one of the most exciting sort of actually bits of new information we got here is not only their opinion on which vehicles are going to be most popular, not the 3 and the Y, which I think is very interesting, and that they're not actually going to retool the existing lines for the SX3Y, but that the future lines are actually going to be more robotically capable, right? Right now they're showing humans working on these individual different pieces, and the idea was that, hey, we can, rather than assembling the car and then disassembling the car and reassembling the car, we could just manufacture the car in the various different pieces, so that way no part of the car is not being worked on while it's being manufactured. And really what you're saying is, let's have robots perfect each piece of the car, and then we'll puzzle it together like Legos. It makes sense. It initially was a little boring, this idea of, okay, 30% space-time efficiency improvement. But really what they're saying is, the Optimus robot is going to be building the most popular vehicles for Tesla. And the most popular vehicles for Tesla are yet to come. That's sort of the bullish argument. And if you believe in this idea, which it's obvious Tesla is really the master and leader in innovation when it comes to minimizing cost and maximizing margin. That's redundant, that's the same thing. But anyway, obviously then this becomes a nice little by the dippy doodle opportunity here, right? Of course. Look, I am a long-term investor. I think the presentation was an SH9T show, but putting the emotion of yesterday aside, this is actually very interesting, especially because this next gen vehicle is actually really, I think, where they're thinking, that's going to be where we make most of our vehicles. Look at this again. 2.6 times as many vehicles are expected to be produced that don't exist yet, relative to what is already available from Tesla. So this is really the big takeaway from the master plan, is that, look, the next vehicles that are actually going to represent 2.6 times the production of the current lineup, which are going to be manufactured in a much more efficient manner, potentially 50% as inexpensive via the use of our robots or whatever. This is the master plan. This is the scale that nobody's really talking about yet. And so, okay, I will give that to Tesla. I will give that to Tesla that it was there. I think it was very poorly conveyed, and only after sobering up, after basically, falling asleep on the Tesla presentation, does that become more apparent. But I think it's worth highlighting that, because I do think as a long-term investor, this is actually phenomenally exciting. I'm very, very interested by that. Somebody here writes, copy and paste assumes the current process is perfect. We should assume everything we do is wrong and can be improved upon. Yeah, I don't want to come across as suggesting that copy and paste didn't mean stop refining, right? And I understand then that's sort of like definitionally playing with copy and paste. But I mean, obviously, if you're going to okay, good, we've got a really good model for Giga Austin and Giga Berlin, let's do it again. Obviously, the idea is let's take everything we learned, and if we could do things slightly better, great, but let's just get as many factories up as possible. I think that was the idea of copy and paste, is let's ramp as many times as we can. But it actually seems like rather than ramping as many times as we can now, the real plan is how are we going to prepare for that next gen vehicle platform that robots are basically assembling, that we actually think is going to produce 2.6 times as many vehicles as the next, or as the current vehicles. So I think that's very interesting. Can we call this the Gen Z vehicle? What, the small one? Are you making fun of Gen Z? Let's see here. Let's just see if there are any other comments. No, not really. Okay. All right. I do feel bad for MP Materials, though. They, I think they're down like 11% in pre-market because Tesla talked about getting rid of rare earth materials. Now, I've always been a big fan of staying away from commodities. Sorry, Steve. Steve, the course member, super into commodities. I'm always a fan of that because if the commodities use change, then the company that benefits is the one making the changes. They're really agnostic to ultimately the material they use. Everybody can make all these lithium investments, and if all of a sudden we find a better battery chemistry that doesn't use lithium, all those lithium investments go to poopsie doopsies, and the company actually, the end manufacturer is the one that ends up winning, right? Because they use a more efficient material, maybe one that's a lower cost or whatever. But anyway, MP Material did reply on Twitter, and I thought it was kind of a nice little slap at Tesla for their presentation. MP Material writes, "Did we miss something? Yawn." It's like straight up MP Materials clapback. I mean, MP Materials stock is obviously going to be a little sad today. It's down 10.6% because of this talk about potentially getting rid of rare earth materials in the engines of vehicles. And I do think that a lot of Tesla investors were sort of diversifying with MP Materials, so that doesn't terribly surprise me. But yeah, sorry, MP. I did think their clapback was pretty funny, though. So anyway, yeah. So I think the bottom line of that is, look, price target wise, does this really change anything for Tesla? No. The icing on the cake is still there. Obviously, we still, we went in with somewhat salty expectations anyway for Investor Day, just because Tesla's not that great at doing events. This just happened to be a very horrible event. I would be very upset if I actually went out there for the event, because I think it was poorly put together. I think they could have really spent more time talking about what I just talked about and painting that vision. But this is what happens when you have engineers putting on a presentation. Apple is a company of engineers, but they take the knowledge of the engineers and then they give real presenters the tool to properly convey the information. And that's, when they're just relying on engineers to do it, you're just putting on basically a snooze fest. And I hate to say it, it's nothing against engineers. I think a lot of engineers will be like, no, Kevin, you're right. I don't, this isn't meant to be offensive. It's just honest. Anyway.